Good evening, TheoTrade. This is Corey Rosenblum, and you're watching the Theo Nightly video for another action-packed, volatility-packed Tuesday. It's the 14th of March. Let's get started. In the market today, the theme was all about rebounds. And the rebound mostly took place right here. I say mostly because the technology sector was up strong, in fact, the strongest today. But the rebound took place in the financial sector, and for the most part in the beleaguered KRE, which is your regional banks. And it had a good bounce and then faded all the way back to the close. So we continue to watch as a trading community the regional banks, and there are lots and lots of them. And if you ever want to take a peek into which banks make up the KRE, you'll see them in your Analyze tab. We'll have regions, PNC, MTB, and all the way down in the top holdings of that ETF. But that's what we are watching as a financial community. To what extent are regional banks steady, solid, bailed out, or failing or falling under? All that being said, the strongest gainers in today's session earlier was the Russell, and the Russell has large exposure to those regional banks, or at least the financial sector. Take a look at the RTY or the Russell, and it, for the most part, was green today. Not a lot of pockets of red, mostly pockets of green. All the sectors were up, but it's the Russell that was the 3% gainer that came down to close 2% to the upside. But it was the Nasdaq of all the things we watch, which was the strongest, and that is in large part because of Meta. And Meta, which is Facebook, the stock formerly known as Facebook, was up 7% in today's session, and behind it was AMD, Advanced Micro, but some of the main financial stocks. And that's what we're watching, is the transfer, just put it KRE, from KRE, which is regional banks, into large bank stocks. That includes Citigroup, and that includes Wells Fargo, and a few others, American Express, Bank of New York Mellon, and some others down the list. Now, the other stocks that were strong, again, the main theme of tonight's video, and we haven't even talked about the CPI, the inflation. We'll get there because PPI is tomorrow. But the main stocks were actually tech gainers, and that's seen here in the Nasdaq and the S&P. We had mostly bullish, if not just about all bullish activity. But it was due mainly to the technology sector, and mainly Meta, Nvidia, Tesla, and Google, Adobe, Microsoft, Amazon, and the others. So that did lead to a bull reversal, or at least a bull bounce in today's session. Just looking at some of these names, we have had a trading range in these general financial stocks, and they are living up to their range, fading short from the high and all the way back through. That's true in the XLF as well. So lots of stocks are similar. Of course, the one that we are watching is KRE, much, much, much different than the others. Regional banks are a subsection of the banking sector and, of course, the financial sector in general. So outside of that, the other headline is crude oil falling at 1.5% in today's session. On the 1-minute chart, it's more dramatic. That was down, starting the session with a gap from 75 per barrel, ending the session around 71 per barrel. It also, theming it like the financials, but it also has its sideways trading range, roughly speaking $72 on the downside and 82 or so to the upside, making that mid roughly 77. And that's where we're going to be watching in the rest of the week. Gold had a strong bounce, again, on those regional bank issues and a flight to safety. There's gold, and it was slightly unchanged down in today's session, but a big perspective on gold shows that it itself is in a lengthy, and has been in a sideways trading range, with that midpoint roughly 1845. And the other that we're keeping our eye on, similar to the gold market, which is a flight to safety, is bonds. TLT spent the last couple of trading sessions, we'll go back to our short-term charts, surging as money flowed away from banks, or at least away from stocks, and into the safety of bonds. And to an extent, some traders actually put some of the money into gold. gold stocks or gold itself or gold futures. So those trades are unwinding a little bit because they were overcooked, overheated, but nonetheless, a regional financial bank crisis or liquidity crisis, or at least that's what the headline news are sharing and how investors are reacting to it, is going to put a risk off or protective or defensive or conservative type of money flow to the market itself. And behind all that was the dollar coming off the last few sessions. So putting it into a much bigger perspective in the, we say financial crisis, but it is, we had stocks that went down, recovered today's session, oil that went down and got weaker, gold that caught a strong bid to the upside, and bonds caught their bid to the upside as well. But which stocks in today's session? I always want to look at those that made new lows, and what does that say about the broader market? There were two stocks in today's session that made new 52-week highs. That's Cadence Design, CDNS, and Arista Networks, ANET. But there were many more stocks at the end of the session, 15 and 15, there we are, stocks that made new 52-week lows. And I'll go through some of them, but they are CVS, Triple M, and the others down the list. So I want to see these just because they are strong, getting stronger. We'll look at ANET first. We'll go back to our big picture. ANET is a strong stock getting stronger on a breakout, but far many more stocks were down and weak and getting weaker. Just in today's session, Amgen and CVS, Walgreens Boots, Ford, IBM, and Triple M were the weakest stocks in an otherwise bullish session, but some of these are making 52-week lows, which is going to draw our attention there. So on the weekly perspective, CVS is coming down from its 105 reversal, and that's trading now towards 75 with new 52-week lows printing. Triple M, and there was a call out in the room. We discussed this, and I have to pull the perspective much to the upside. And we'll go to the weekly chart, the monthly chart, and we'll take a look 15 years back. What we'll do here is adjust. We'll get those dividends out, take the dividends out of the equation, and we see that Triple M, is down there making new lows, not just 52-week lows from a year ago, which is right over here, but it's making price lows, at least on the chart, not seen since 2013. And that's something to keep our eye on, was a stock like Triple M, and that is weak, getting weaker. But then Centene, CNC, is also coming off from its highs. We'll go back to our daily chart. There's CNC, Devon Energy, Hormel Foods, Southwest Air. We'll go to its daily chart and weekly. Southwest, LUV, and others. Hasbro, we've seen that one on our list for a few weeks here. It continues to press off those new lows. So in today's session, the pre-market news was on CPI. And what's the CPI? CPI is your consumer price index. And that came in, roughly speaking, in line with expectations. So we're going to be watching the Fed and what that says about the Fed funds rate and how they are looking to raise a quarter basis point, or perhaps not raise at all at their March 22nd meeting. But we'll have other things to discuss as that gets closer. But CPI data in line with expectations, but it's still high. Inflation is still here, and it's not going away without additional action. So CPI in today's session for the prior month and how that responded is a little bit higher and in expectations, in line with expectations. But in tomorrow's session, we'll go and have the PPI. What's the PPI? PPI is the Producer Price Index. We'll just look at some additional inflation numbers, and we'll have retail sales in tomorrow's session. Also, we'll have Adobe and a few other stocks. Groupon are going to report earnings. On Thursday, earnings will come from FedEx, Dollar General, and a few others there too. So what is a weekly expected move, or what is the next day expected move suggest about volatility? So when we're looking at these and planning out the next trading session, we want to look at what the next day option is. In this case, the S&P futures. That's around 42 up or down handles or points. In the Nasdaq, it's pricing in roughly 146. That's lower than today's session. So all things being equal, always keep an eye on volatility that can give you the intraday range and the expectations. Yesterday was around 72 handles on the S&P. That gave us a projected target just above, right here, into about that 3968, 72 some odd handles, and that's exactly where the market went and reversed in today's session. So it is important to make a note, especially of intraday traders and even short-term swing traders, not only where the weekly expected move is, which is our TheoTrade shared studies grid here, but also now the new intraday or zero DTE expiration. Lots of news, lots of volatility, lots of risk, but similarly, lots of opportunities and profits and rewards for careful and safe traders. As always, be careful and safe. This is Corey Rosen with tonight's Theo video update for March 14th, 2023.